Welcome to Get Sleepy, where we listen, we relax, and we get sleepy. My name's Thomas, and I'm your host. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's episode. Shortly, we'll return to our series, Big Ideas at Bedtime, to explore the idea of balance. In our first installment of this series, we looked at animal intelligence and all of the intricacies of the subject. If you'd like to go back and listen to that episode, you'll find it on our feed, released on July 7th, 2025. As for tonight, we'll get curious about how balance is reflected in the world around us, and how it might guide us towards happiness and a life well lived. We'll consider a range of ideas and practices, from the religious beliefs of the ancient Egyptians to a philosophy in modern-day Sweden. Okay, my friends, let's prepare for our story and settle down in our comfortable havens of rest. Know that as you listen along, there are thousands of other people all over the world doing the same thing. Whatever it is that brings you to this place, be it the sense of calm and reassurance we try to nurture, the intrigue of our stories themselves, the familiarity of our voices, or just for the helping hand to ease racing thoughts and welcome relaxation when you come to bed. Know that you are far from alone with that. We've all come to this place for a good night's rest. And that's a beautiful thing to share in with one another. Who knows, maybe you've crossed paths with a fellow Get Sleepy listener when you've been out and about in your day-to-day life. Maybe there are even one or two people that you know well that have checked out a few of our episodes in the past, or that are regular listeners, like you may well be. And it's funny really, because even I have had those pretty mind-blowing moments where I've been telling a new friend what I do for work, and they'll say to me, "Wait, that's you." And they might go on to say that either they've listened to the show, or their partner, or someone in their family. Now, I'm sorry if this is coming across like some sort of brag, but I promise that's not my intention. It's just that I like to re-emphasize the widespread community that we have with this show. And there are many people that may listen to other podcasts or apps and sound machines and whatever else. Ultimately, we're all in the same boat. Everyone who comes here is seeking that source of familiarity and routine, and the comfort that just nudges us in the right direction when it comes to getting a good night's sleep. So, with that being said, let's all enjoy a couple of deep, relaxing breaths. Breathing in to the count of 5. Holding for a moment, then exhaling to the count of 7. Breathe in again for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Feel free to maintain that rhythm of breathing for as long as you like, and gently invite your natural rhythm to return whenever you're ready. And now, you can snuggle in and listen to the sound of my voice as we begin our story, considering the value of balance in our lives. Chances are that at some point in your life, you've reflected on the importance of balance. Perhaps you were trying to stick to a budget, to buy nothing more than what you really needed. Maybe you've aimed for a more balanced diet, with more fruits and vegetables. And at some point, you've probably tried to create more balance in your life overall, so it's not all about work and responsibilities. Concepts like the elusive work-life balance might seem, at first, like very modern phenomena. But these are things we've been thinking about for millennia, even if the specifics have changed. From the earliest civilizations, humans have noticed the prevalence of balance in nature. Different cultures have valued this concept, aspiring towards it in many areas of life. This is what we're exploring tonight. What people through time have believed about balance, and how these beliefs have affected their lives. Let's begin in ancient Egypt, a civilization that began around 5,000 years ago. The Egyptians were a deeply religious people, and balance was key to their beliefs and culture. They observed that nature often happened in cycles, and that these cycles kept everything working. Warm seasons were balanced out with the cold, and daytime was followed by night. Then there was the River Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt, which provided the nation with its food and water. It made the land fertile after an annual flooding, which balanced out the dry seasons and allowed crops to grow. Balance was at the center of Egyptian religious beliefs. Beliefs about nature and the cosmos, life and the afterlife. The goddess Maat was the embodiment of balance, as well as harmony, order, truth, and justice. The Egyptians believed the world had been born out of chaos, until Atum, or Ra, created himself and his children, and structured the world into sky, earth, and air. Once there was structure, Maat came into play. She She was the force that held the new world together. Mart was both a goddess and a cosmic principle, the opposite of chaos, injustice, and evil. As Egyptians saw it, it was their duty to maintain this balance. By doing this, they would keep chaos at bay. A healthy society was a society in balance, one which upheld the ideal of Mart. Laws were written with social harmony in mind. Judges promised to rule with fairness and justice. The Egyptian pharaoh, at the head of society, was thought to be the living representation of Mart. They handed out pardons and punishments for the good of the community and played a vital role in maintaining order. Regular citizens had to do their part too, by honouring Mart at religious festivals and through daily rituals. They might also show their devotion by living a life of virtue and aligning their behaviour with the principles Mart stood for. This meant being honest and living with integrity, being respectful of other people and the world around them. Living a life of balance was fundamental to the Egyptians, not just for their daily life, but their afterlife as well. The Egyptians saw death as the beginning of another chapter, just another stage in a continuous cycle. After death, a person's soul journeyed to the afterlife, where their worthiness would be judged in the Hall of Mart, also known as the Hall of Truth. There, they had to recite the 42 negative confessions with statements of denial, like, "I have not committed sin," and the more specific declaration, "I have not polluted the water." Next, the god Anubis would judge a person's soul using a giant balancing scale with a plate at either end. At one end, he weighed the heart, the home of a person's conscience. At the other, there was a feather, the symbol of Mart. If a person had lived a life of dishonesty and wrongdoing, it would show up on the scales as a heavy heart. The heart would subsequently be eaten by the creature Amit, and the soul would be destroyed. A heart that weighed the same as a feather, or less, was the sign of a life lived in harmony with Mart. And thus, a person could travel on to the afterlife, their reward being entry into the field of reeds. On an individual level, a life of balance brought immortality. For the wider society, It brought peace and prosperity. Balance for the Egyptians was the blueprint of life, the natural and cosmic order which mankind must align with. The ancient Egyptians were far from alone in putting balance at the center of their worldview. Similar themes can be found in philosophies and religions across all 6 continents, from tiny tribes to great empires. In India, there's a concept that's strikingly similar to Mart. Known as Rita, it's the principle of truth, order, and balance, a concept at the core of the ancient Vedic religion. Today, we're more familiar with what Rita evolved into, namely the concepts of Dharma and Karma. These are central to many Eastern religions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Each religion differs on the specifics of these concepts, but in Buddhism, Dharma is the principle of cosmic order. It illustrates how societies should govern and make laws, how people should behave to keep the world in balance. It's closely entwined with the concept of karma, which is about the moral weight of our words, thoughts, and actions. In simple terms, Dharma is the right way to live, and karma is the result of what we actually do. Some of us might know karma by its most basic and westernized description. Do good things, and good things happen. Do bad things, and bad things happen. It's the version that's been popularized, sometimes leading to misconceptions. One being that karma is a reward or punishment. In fact, it isn't personal in any way. Generating karma is a natural consequence of acting, and there is no good or bad karma, just karma itself. It's no more personal than how a ball falls back down after it's been thrown into the air. Nor is it a case of bad things happening to bad people, at least not in the sense that we might like to see it. Most Hindus, for instance, believe in a cycle of rebirth, in which karma plays a key part. The energy a person generates influences their next life. What form they take, how intelligent they might be, and how rich or healthy. So, even if a person who behaves badly seems to be doing well, misfortune might await them in their next life. A common analogy compares life to a garden. When we do the right thing, when we're kind or honest, a good seed is planted into the soil. When we intentionally harm others with words or deeds, a bad seed is planted, creating weeds instead of flowers. Karma isn't fate, it's a matter of free choice. The gardener is free to plant the seeds they choose, but the resulting garden, with its weeds or flowers, will eventually come to harvest in this life or the next. Interestingly, gardens have often been used as a literal representation of balance and harmony. The ancient Egyptians, who we heard about earlier, created temple gardens as an expression of Ma'at. Trees planted in rows and plants in geometric patterns were a visual reflection of the sacred order. Pools symbolized life and purity, while plants stood for regeneration. The symmetry of the garden was reflected in the pool's surface, which only enhanced the sense of harmony. Thousands of years later, in the 17th century, the French formal garden displayed similar themes. The most notable example is at the Palace of Versailles, the home of King Louis XIV. Straight gravel pathways connect a network of gardens, which are square-shaped or rectangular. The walkways are laid out symmetrically and flanked with lines of identically pruned trees. Water features reflect rows of neatly trimmed hedges. However, gardens like Versailles weren't a reflection of the cosmic order. Instead, they were designed to showcase their owner's power. At Versailles, the king showed that he could even tame nature, bringing order and balance to the wildest landscape. This style of design couldn't be more different from the Japanese gardens that are still popular today. Here, balance can be found by embracing the irregularity of nature, by finding beauty in its impermanence and unpredictability. Rocks, pathways, plants, and water features are intentionally placed in asymmetrical patterns. For instance, a rock might be placed opposite a lantern. Although they're not the same, they complement one another. These designs are rooted in Eastern religion and philosophy, Zen Buddhism, Shinto, and Taoism. They are also indirectly influenced by Chinese philosophy, in particular, the concept of yin and yang. This represents complementary opposites. Both are needed to keep the world in balance. You might be familiar with the yin and yang symbol, black and white teardrop shapes, interconnected within a circle. Japanese gardens express this concept by providing contrast in a number of ways. Areas of empty space are balanced out by those with plant life, and there are patches of light alongside shaded sections. Water and stone provide opposing elements and textures. Flowing water is movement, while the rocks are stillness. These gardens also illustrate the philosophy of wabi-sabi, which balances beauty alongside decay. A weathered wooden bench or a moss-covered stone. These things reveal beauty in both age and imperfection. Gardens are a microcosm of the natural order, a small-scale version of the outside world. Rocks are sometimes used to symbolize islands or mountains. Patches of sand might be the sky, and pools of water, the ocean. The Japanese garden isn't just there to be looked at. It's designed to be experienced, to be felt as well as seen. A common meditation involves taking a rake to sand or gravel, forming wave-like patterns to create a sense of flow. Time in the garden might offset how the other hours are spent, working, thinking, socializing, and doing. These gardens are like a form of living artwork, designed to foster spiritual harmony between people and nature. The same is true of some traditional art forms, not only in Japan, but across the world. One example is the geometric designs that originated in the Islamic world from around the 8th century onwards. Colourful patterns tile the walls of buildings, like the Alhambra in Spain. Designs and colours are often symmetrical, including precise geometric shapes which interlock or overlap. But as pretty as these are, they're about more than decoration. They're a visual representation of Islamic beliefs. The viewer might reflect on the divine order when looking at shapes so mathematically precise, or the Prophet Muhammad's teachings about balance and moderation when taking in the symmetry of shapes and colours. Balance is also a theme in Christian artwork, particularly during the European Renaissance, around the 15th and 16th centuries. Perhaps you've seen The Last Supper, a painting by the Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci. It depicts Jesus and his disciples at their dramatic last meeting after he's told the group that one of them will betray him. Leonardo places Jesus at the exact center of the table. With his arms outstretched, he forms the shape of a triangle. The artist uses light as well as lines in the backdrop to make Jesus the focal point, a source of calm amidst the chaos. Leonardo also created the Vitruvian Man, an iconic image which sets out the proportions of the body. In this drawing, precise measurements, ratios, and angles show the human anatomy as a reflection of the divine. It points to an equilibrium between body and soul, between faith and logic, and science and nature. The figure's placement within a square and an outer circle reflects the earthly and spiritual worlds that mankind is linked to. These ideas weren't new in the 15th century. Leonardo's Vitruvian Man was inspired by the works of Vitruvius, a Roman architect and engineer who lived in the 1st century BCE. In his volumes on architecture, Vitruvius had explained that buildings should reflect the proportions of the human body. Temples should be symmetrical and perfectly proportioned to mirror the composition of the human anatomy. If you've ever seen the ruins of a classical temple or one of the Renaissance buildings inspired by classical designs, then you might well have noted a sense of visual balance. Something along the lines of white marble columns positioned evenly around a rectangular base, and a triangular pediment creating symmetry at the front, as if there's a mirror down the center of the building. In classical architecture, balance meant beauty. In temples in particular, it reflected a belief in the divine order. Temples were built to honor the gods, deities who valued balance just as much as mortals. Such buildings were only possible thanks to complex mathematics and formulas like the golden ratio, discovered in ancient Greece around 300 BCE. Ever since, this ratio has been used by artists and architects to create the ideal proportions between two quantities or measures. This allows for a display of balance that is aesthetically pleasing. According to some scholars, the golden ratio is behind the architecture of the Parthenon. It's what makes the Mona Lisa so pleasing to the eye. Today, the ratio pops up in a number of different ways and has inspired the designs of many well-known symbols. For instance, think of the logos for Apple and Pepsi. These brand logos might not strictly adhere to the golden ratio, but with their simple elegance and sense of proportion, there's a clear visual balance, one that the ancient Greeks would likely have approved of. What's particularly fascinating about the golden ratio is how it appears in nature. There are multiple examples in the natural world. For instance, the spiral patterns on the skin of a pineapple often match the Fibonacci sequence. If you look closely at the skin and count the spirals of scales in opposite directions, you might find patterns of numbers such as 8 and 13. The ratio of consecutive Fibonacci numbers approaches the golden ratio. Interestingly, honeybees also follow the Fibonacci sequence in their reproduction patterns. Each male bee has one parent, while each female has two. If you trace their ancestry over generations, you get Fibonacci numbers. The ratio of these numbers gradually gets closer to the golden ratio. Snail shells are another intriguing example. Although they don't necessarily follow the golden ratio, they grow in the form of logarithmic spirals. Each new chamber of a snail shell is proportionally larger than the last. This allows the shell to expand without changing its shape. The same balanced growth of logarithmic spirals can also be seen elsewhere in nature, from hurricanes to galaxies. On a general level, all plants and animals rely on balance in the natural world. There needs to be balance between predators and the prey that make up their ecosystem, between sunlight and water, and between space to roam and shelter. Even the cells that make up all living organisms work to maintain a steadiness within. From temperature to pH levels, a cell's growth and functioning depend on balance. Human biology works in much the same way. On a cellular level, across organs and systems, automatic processes work to keep things in balance. When we exercise, we sweat to cool ourselves down. If we swim in cold water, we shiver and heat up. Consider the makeup of the human body, the symmetry of the skeleton, and the way bones grow in proportion. The structures of the inner ear keep us upright and steady, alongside our vision and our sense of awareness. When you bend your knee, you use antagonistic muscles. The hamstrings contract and the quadriceps relax. The opposite happens when you straighten your leg. The quads contract and the hamstrings relax. Balance is also integral to our understanding of physics, what we know about energy, motion, and stability. This knowledge has been applied practically across numerous fields, from mechanics and architecture to electrics and engineering. For example, skyscrapers use counterweights to keep them steady during a storm or earthquake. The electricity we depend on runs on balanced voltage. A car's brakes will only work if its braking force is balanced between the front and back wheels. And in order to fly straight and level, a plane needs dynamic equilibrium, a balance between vertical and horizontal forces. The Goldilocks principle is a term sometimes used by designers and engineers across various fields. It's a reference to the fairy tale Goldilocks and the Three Bears, in which a young girl visits a bear's empty cottage. As the story goes, Goldilocks enters the kitchen and finds 3 bowls of porridge laid out on the table. The first is too hot, and the second too cold. But the third bowl is just right. Similarly, when she sits, she finds the first chair to be too big. The next one is too small, but the third one is perfect. And again, when she's sleepy and ready for bed, it's the third one that's just right. Neither too hard, nor too soft. In its modern usage, the Goldilocks principle is about finding a happy medium. An engineer, for example, might use the principle when designing a particular product. It guides them to find a sweet spot between competing requirements like cost, safety, performance, and sustainability. Economists might talk about a Goldilocks economy, meaning one that's ideal for steady growth. Unemployment rates are low, and inflation is stable. Indeed, the Goldilocks principle pops up in all kinds of places. In politics and education, in business and marketing, and even in space travel. Planet Earth has been called a Goldilocks planet because it's the perfect distance away from the Sun. Any closer and the seas would evaporate. Further away, the seas would freeze. Earth is in the exact right position to enable liquid water to exist, which is why life is able to grow and thrive on the planet. So, balance is crucial to the survival of our world and every living thing on Earth today. It's a theme across our societies and our thinking as individuals, in how we work, travel, live, and feel alive. And yet, as much as mankind has progressed in leaps and bounds, many people today struggle to find balance. Advances in technology have helped to blur the boundaries between our careers and life outside of work. With such busy lives, it can be hard to find time for the things that matter. In part, perhaps this explains the increasing curiosity about other cultures and other ways of living. Globalization has seen the spread of different wisdom and rituals, and Eastern traditions have become popular in the West. Once upon a time, you'd have had to visit India if you wanted to learn about or practice yoga. But today, you can find a video at the click of a button and perform the movements that balance mind, body, and spirit. Tai Chi originated in China hundreds of years ago as a means of harmonizing yin and yang within the body. As a physical activity, it's somewhat similar to yoga. Slow, flowing movements synchronized with the breath, and poses performed with a sense of focus. Other martial arts are more physically demanding, but they are similarly known to encourage balance within. Core stability is required across all kinds of disciplines, whether striking, kicking, evading, or attacking. In sports like judo, practitioners try to break their opponent's balance. That's when they go for a throw or takedown. A judoka or judo practitioner must remain aware of their own weight distribution. They have to keep their own balance while disrupting their opponent. These activities balance the mind as well as the body. They help to master difficult emotions. Practitioners might walk a tightrope between fear and aggression. But with practice, they learn to go with the flow. Of course, there are also other ways of encouraging inner balance. Pastimes which require a lot less movement. Ikebana, for example, is a Japanese tradition which centers around the process of arranging flowers. Like the Japanese gardens that we heard about earlier, it emphasizes asymmetry, irregularity, and space to reflect the reality of nature. Putting the flowers together requires a level of concentration. It calms the mind while cultivating patience. It might be likened to mindfulness meditation, which itself is a concept brought over from the East. Rooted in the traditions of Asia, mindfulness has been widely embraced in the West. Mindfulness practices and meditations have made their way into homes, workplaces, and even schools. They're aimed at encouraging a sense of inner balance across body, mind, thoughts, and emotions. One might offset a hectic day with a few minutes of breathing, balancing out the busyness with a calming slowness, or regain equilibrium by bringing awareness to the body, feeling and noticing rather than thinking. A person can gain a more balanced mindset by becoming aware of negative patterns of thinking. They learn to see things as they are, without attaching a story or falling into the trap of negative thinking. Over time, this can help with mental equilibrium. By practicing mindfulness, we might learn to become less reactive and steadier in our thoughts, words, and actions. Mindfulness can take many different forms, from meditation, sitting still with our eyes closed, to going about our day with our eyes open. It's as easy as paying attention to our senses and surroundings, noticing what's happening in the present moment. But it's about more than any one practice. Mindfulness might be considered a lifestyle, a way of being that brings balance. In Sweden, a balanced approach to living is encapsulated in the concept of lagom. The Swedes frequently score highly in studies on global happiness, and many cite lagom as one of the reasons. The word means just right. Not too much, not too little. At a glance, it's similar to the Goldilocks principle, but it runs far deeper as a life philosophy. Lagom encourages us to find perfection in simplicity, to practice moderation, taking only what's sufficient. But it doesn't carry any of the negative connotations that we sometimes associate with words like adequate. It isn't about avoiding what you really want, missing out, or self-restricting. Lagom is about taking only what you need, because that's what brings the most joy and pleasure. It steers people away from any kind of extreme in what we eat and drink, and how we work, rest, and play. Enough is as good as a feast, is how the Swedes often put it. When eating, for instance, people should listen to their body so as not to eat too much or too little. And it isn't necessarily about health. Rather, It's a case of enjoying every bite. A balanced diet also makes room for indulgence, for which the Swedes have the custom known as fika. It's a cross between a coffee break and a mindfulness meditation, with the addition of a sweet treat such as a cake or pastry. Lagom and fika are close companions. A cardamom bun, for instance, might be described as lagom because it offers a balance of sweet and spicy flavors. And on a deeper level, the overall ritual of fika offers a moment to pause, a break in the busy day. Lagom is frequently used as a descriptive term. It's an item of clothing that fits and feels perfect, or a joke that provokes laughter without crossing too many boundaries. It's easy listening music that's melodic but not distracting, or a sunny day with a cool breeze. The interior of a home might be called lagom if it reflects the middle ground between ostentatious and minimalistic. Imagine a typically Scandinavian room, neither cluttered nor bare, both calming and cozy. On a broader scale, there's another element too, a comment on overspending and modern consumerism. A lagom lifestyle emphasizes ease over excess. There's no need to buy two things when one is enough. It also runs counter to what's sometimes called hustle culture, in which overworking is accepted or even admired, and work is prioritized above everything else. To the Swedes, this is the path to imbalance and unhappiness. Work is important, but it shouldn't consume you. A lagom approach to work allows for healthy boundaries. Blocks of focused work are interspersed with breaks, and staff go home at a reasonable hour. Rest time is not only respected, but encouraged. After all, happy people make for dedicated workers. A well-rested workforce is a productive one. Swedish attitudes are not too dissimilar to the idea of work-life balance. This concept emphasizes the need for rest and boundaries. Modern approaches to work-life balance often draw inspiration from Eastern cultures. Workers might try yoga and mindfulness as a means of finding calm and unloading any stress. In recent years, some companies have implemented a 4-day work week, giving workers a longer weekend without reducing productivity. Such experiments are surely bound to continue as part of our quest for balance. A quest, perhaps, that isn't meant to be completed. We might think of our lives as a Japanese garden, not a goal to be achieved, but rather something to be cared for, worked on and nurtured, one day at a time.